This week on Arizona Illustrated, Monsoon Chocolate.
Whoa, wait a second. Chocolate is so much more complex than I ever thought it was.
Scott and Abbie.
Took her in and she peed all over me. And the person at Humane Society said, she's marking her territory.
And Wildland Firefighter.
I was the only woman, so I had to figure out how to hold my own.
Welcome to Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. Chocolate is one of the most loved, celebrated, and consumed confections in the country. One local entrepreneur in Tucson is taking it to a whole new level of taste complexity and sophistication, all with an eye on ethical practices and sustainability. This is Monsoon Chocolate.
One of the things that has drawn me to chocolate is the fact that it is just so complex. It's really one of the most complex flavor substances known to man. It's got between 600 and 800 volatile compounds. That puts it off the chart. That's like higher than wine, cheese, beer, coffee, and those are all things that are very complex. Once we receive cocoa beans, the first step is to sort them. We're looking for properly fermented beans that have not germinated. We work with cocoa producers in Ecuador, Peru, Madagascar, Tanzania, Uganda, Mexico, Vietnam, India. This is the cornerstone to everything that we do.
So we're grinding up the cocoa nibs. Which is getting the nibs that have already been roasted and winnowed and putting them in this molino, which was used to grind corn. The two stones pretty much just get caught in through here, grind them down, and then they get spat out over here and turned into cocoa liquor. The content of cocoa butter is all different in the beans, so this one is flowing pretty freely. This is from Tanzania, but other origins don't have as much cocoa butter in the bean, and they'll come out very sludgy. I just like to reflect on that, and I think it's just so complex and crazy. I had a basic general idea of chocolate and how the general it's from a bean and then it gets turned into a bar, but I had no idea all of the other processes involved.
This machine is called a melanger. It's basically a stone grinder.
Just making sure that the texture is smooth, that it's not gritty, because that will eventually translate to the actual bar. You want to make sure that it melts nicely on your tongue and that it has a good mouthfeel.
It's also aerating and agitating the chocolate as it moves, which is helping to volatilize some of the organic compounds inside of it. It really just comes down to the bean and the formulation, but usually 3 to 4 days.
So just this?
Just this, yep, with little bits of maintenance from us. My interest in chocolate really just came out of my interest in food. I worked in restaurants for years and years, and then I moved from the restaurant industry into specialty grocery. So I was the grocery manager at Time Market, and when I started there, they had chocolate bars from Dandelion Chocolate. This was back in 2013. That was the first single origin bean-to-bar chocolate I ever tried, and it was revelatory. And when I tasted it, I just, it's like, whoa, wait a second. Chocolate is so much more complex than I ever thought it was. All chocolate is made from cocoa beans, so all chocolate is bean-to-bar chocolate. But really that phrase is being used to describe this movement of mostly small batch makers that have some sort of direct connection to the source of the cocoa. It's the phrase that our industry uses for this renaissance of new chocolate making. I really just wanted to understand the process more. I didn't intend on starting a company, but I just fell in love with the process.
One of my favorite Bonbon flavors is the black pepper caramel with white chocolate rose petal ganache. I make just a traditional caramel, but then I add black pepper extract, and then I also add a little bit of finely ground black pepper so that it's like caramelly, but like a little bit spicy, but it's like still balanced. I think I like draw inspiration from my ethnic background too, because I'm half Korean and half German, which is kind of a weird combination. Before I worked here, I basically knew nothing about chocolate. I grew up in Germany. Pastry and baking there is just really traditional. So when I moved to the States, I wanted to learn how to make pastry myself. I started at the Bee line under Terry Lachance, and she taught me a lot. And then I was the head baker at 5 Points, and then here. Instead of building, a multi-layered cake, you're kind of doing that all in one bite. Sometimes they'll all come out at the same time. It's very rare, and it's really exciting. Okay. Ah, perfect crack out.
Visual is always the first thing that attracts someone, or intrigues them at least. So this is our prickly pear caramel bonbon. There are 3 different colored cocoa butter colors. So there's the white splatter, which it's just Jackson Pollock, you just stand there and you just kind of fling the cocoa butter on the mold and it does its own thing. After that, there is this light shimmery purple that we just use our finger and we just swipe in the mold. So it gives it a little bit of depth and texture. And then behind that is the dark purple, which just then really helps the rest of it pop. These are some of the variety of bonbons that we have to offer. Typically it starts with a flavor. Adam and Athena think of a fun flavor to do. And from there we just kind of think, well, what kind of colors, what kind of decor would make sense for that flavor. It took me a good amount of time to be able to get this kind of motion to work for me. I was really clumsy at first. I've been an artist most of my life. I went from painting and drawing into ceramics and just kind of stumbled into this. Using colored cocoa butter as a medium wasn't anything I had thought of, but once I started doing it, it was fun. Okay. So the chili mango is also 3 different colors, but this technique is all spraying. Originally we had a green that just didn't quite seem like the right mango green, And so we ordered a different one and then it just all came together. We really love how it turned out. And it's a delightful taste as well. Mango with a hint of spice. I really love when art can become intimate with someone. So in my ceramics, I love making mugs. They're very intimate objects. So it's not that far to go to the bonbons. Most people often are they're too pretty to eat. But then I'm but then you eat them and you realize they're just as tasty, so you do eat them.
Chitapin. So chitapin is a chili.
And whiskey.
The whiskey Delbach. Alrighty, my friend. And I can ring you up right at the register.
We view this as an opportunity to really connect our food shed here in the Sonoran Desert to the chocolate movement. Things like mesquite pod, chiltepin peppers, blue corn. So we get to share those ingredients with the greater chocolate community. And then simultaneously we get to share bean to bar chocolate with Tucson.
Those are homemade marshmallows. You have to try one. Do you want to take a sample of our hot chocolate?
It's been pretty incredible to watch this grow. I'm really proud of everyone, and even, including myself, to have got to this point.
And would you like those bonbons for here to go?
It's been a whole bunch of things. I mean, it's been really exhilarating and really stressful.
We've only been open for a little over a year, but then we just won 14 International Chocolate Awards, and I mean, it's kind of a big deal.
We feel really fortunate to be in this community, really fortunate to be in this location. We set out to offer a really high quality product, and I think really that's where we're focused.
If you're old enough to remember the Vietnam War protests, yippies, and flower power, then you've probably heard of political and social activist Abbie Hoffman. Well, Abbie Hoffman has a namesake living in Tucson, a semi-misbehaved stray who's performing her own form of activism by bringing a new source of joy and purpose into one man's life.
Abbie, sit, lay down, stay, be quiet. Be quiet. No. She flunked out of dog obedience school. So I spell her name A-B-B-I-E after Abbie Hoffman, because Abbie's really political and she's sort of radical. Abbie! It was 7 years ago, Labor Day, the Friday before Labor Day, and I was at Glen and Alvernon, and there was this dog running loose. And she had a collar on, but had a chewed off rope on her. And she was about 30 pounds at that time. She's 40 pounds now. And I took her to Humane Society and got her out of the van. I had a van at the time. Took her in and she peed all over me. And the person at Humane Society said, she's marking her territory. And that did it. You know, she peed on me. I decided this is the dog for me. Here's one your size. Go sniff some butts. I think the doctors should write prescriptions for dogs or cats. With mental illness, people get so wound up and talk about their illnesses and how many they have and all the acronyms. And you go to a dog park, you don't talk about mental illness. You talk about dogs, which is healthy. And I've never disclosed anybody there that had mental illness because it doesn't matter. My name's Scott Whitley. I've lived with manic depressive illness diagnosed since 1989. Bipolar is sort of a confusing term. It could be a sexually liberated polar bear. I just prefer manic depressive illness because that's what it is. I've lost relationships, I've lost jobs, I've lost friends, I've lost periods of my life.
I've been Scott's friend for, it's over 10 years now. He's really great, and it's a great friendship that we have. It's usually once a week. We meet for breakfast, and then we either do a long walk or we head for the dog park. The dog park is always a lot of fun.
And we have breakfast and we talk about life, and he'll ask me how I'm doing with my illness, and I share with him I'm struggling with this medication change, and I'm going to work, training, and he'll be very supportive. And Richard's a history professor from Michigan State, retired, so we talk about the work he did, and he's the older brother I wish I would have had. I had an older brother that we didn't get along too well. You can't choose your family, but you can choose your friends.
Scott's a very resourceful guy, and he, as he puts it, he has his toolkit to deal with mental illness. And One of the most important parts of that toolkit is support. So it's people, and in this case, it's also dogs. And Abbie's becomes clearly a really important support for him.
Depression's a very self-centered state. I'm no good, I'm incompetent, I shouldn't be alive. You know, very serious thoughts. Well, when I take Abbie for a walk, I don't think of that. When I'm at the dog park, I think about the dogs and the people. And Abbie is a talking point. And she likes all the dogs, and she's 7 now, and she's very much a positive force in my life. You having a good time today? You like your ears rubbed, don't you? I had a cat for 22 years, and he was special. His name was How Weird, because he was really weird. He was a Tibetan Buddhist. And he passed on, and he sent me an email. He was in Kathmandu saying it was okay to get a dog. So I got Abbie a year and a half after How Weird passed on. Right, Abbie? And we've been friends ever since. As long as you get treats. And she looks at you, and it's that unconditional love which you don't give yourself when you're depressed. You don't feel you're deserving. I don't like to say stable. I don't like that term because stable could be a places you keep horses. And I hate recovery, because recovery can be doing terrible and be in recovery. Wellness means you're living well. I go through recovery, but I'm in wellness now. Abbie is a balancing force in my life. I owe her a walk or a dog park every day. And that's my responsibility that I feel most committed to. She's just a joy.
And now, from our Far Afield series, we bring you The Rifle and their song, Visitation.
Don't wake me in the morning when you leave me. I prefer to keep on dreaming in the morning when you're gone. And don't shake me in the evening when you need me. I prefer to keep on feeling good and fine when you're gone. So don't wake me in the morning when you need me. I prefer to keep on dreaming as the time lingers on. And don't shake me in the evening when you leave me. I prefer to keep on feeling right and feeling strong.
In the West, forest and wildland fires are a fact of life. Today, fire seasons are 78 days longer than they were in the 1970s. On the front lines are dedicated firefighters who are drawn to this dangerous profession to serve, save lives, and protect property. Linda Strader was one of those, a wildland firefighter.
My name is Linda Strader. I am a landscape architect and certified arborist these days in Green Valley. And in my former life, I was a wildland firefighter. So we are at Florida Station, which back in my day was Florida Ranger Station. And this area is near and dear to my heart. When I was 20 years old, I decided I wanted to be a firefighter, and I accepted a position here at Florida Center. And I remember the day that my supervisor brought me up to work and live here. We were driving up the road, and I'm looking around me, and I'm seeing these majestic oak trees and sycamores and a creek and all these beautiful buildings nestled into this canyon. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I just lucked out big time. I get to live and work in this place. I was just amazed at how gorgeous this place was. I knew the work was going to be hard, and I knew that I was going to be facing the biggest challenge. I thought just firefighting, but that wasn't the biggest challenge. I was the only woman, so I found out there was going to be another challenge. The men didn't want me here, so I had to figure out how to hold my own, both work-wise and social-wise, of where I stood with the crew, and I had to prove that, yeah, I belong here just as much as you do, and I did. Back in 1976 was my first summer as a firefighter, and our second fire call was out here in Box Canyon in the Santa Rita Mountains, and we got the call thinking that we would be able to drive to it with the tanker. So we came out here, a narrow winding mountain road with 200-gallon tanker, and got to the site and realized we were going to have to hike in. There's a lot of rock. We're stumbling over cactus and agaves. We're sticking our legs and making us bleed. I mean, it was really a tough hike up there. The fire was moving away from us while we were building line, and it turned around and came toward us. So the only escape route that we had was to run into the black, which is where the fire already burned, because obviously if the vegetation is already burned, it won't reburn there. So we ran into the black and waited, and then the fire went around us. But we were encased in smoke, choking smoke, and just lost track of each other there for a few seconds. So that was a little nerve-wracking, and I don't think I've ever run so fast in my life. A 3-foot tall clump of grass can have flames easily 8 to 10 feet tall. And when that's coming at you like a wall of flame, that's something to see, I'll tell you. I've almost been hit by slurry, which can kill you, and that stuff it's just water, but boy, when that stuff comes out of the bottom of the plane and you get the big slug of that on your head, and you can break your neck. Had that scare. I've been a little too close to a tree struck by lightning. That was pretty amazing, and to go back and find the tree in pieces everywhere, and it's just like, oh my goodness. So yeah, we've had some close calls, and everyone does, and I'll have to say that in the 7 years that I did this, I guess I'm really lucky that nobody was ever seriously injured or died around, none of my crewmates or anything, on fire. I completely destroyed my knees. And it was something that I didn't want to admit was happening to me. It was a very difficult decision. But I realized I just couldn't do this anymore. I've had an awful lot of surgery. I had to start my whole life all over again. It was tough because I like my current career, but I really loved my job then. And when people would say, well, you're a woman, how in the world can you do this? And I tell them, well, I do. And even that felt good. You know, it's like, I can do anything I want to do. It fed something in me that nothing else ever had. So, you know, I never was out to prove anything to anybody, not even to myself. I knew I could do it, and I just really enjoyed the satisfaction of a job well done and being outdoors. And, you know, I got paid to work, to go hiking. I thought that was the most amazing thing. I get to pay, and I'd camp out. I got paid to go camping, you know, it was great. We were hot, tired, thirsty, hungry, sore, and yet you get up in the morning and say, oh, I'm gonna get another fire today. So, you know, you either love it or you hate it, and I loved it.
Thank you for joining us here on Arizona Illustrated. I'm Tom McNamara. See you next week.